Welcome to Dental Business RX. Practice success in 30 minutes or less.
Thank you for calling ABC Dental.
When the average doctor contacts MGE, why are they calling us? The reasons may vary, the initial reasons, whether it's they want to get out of plans or they want to get more new patients or something along these lines. But 9 times out of 10, if you peel back why they responded to what they responded to, that doctor is looking to make more income. They want to make more money. They want to make more profit. So when we're approaching a situation like that and talking to a doctor, we have kind of an interesting viewpoint, which is if a practice isn't making money, it isn't because of a lack of something all the time. It may have to do with something actually stopping the office from making more money. You know, as opposed to pressing the accelerator, we find out who's pressing the brakes or what's pressing the brakes to keep the practice from expanding, because it might be any number of factors. So for this week's episode, we sort of boiled this down to the top 3 reasons that your office may not be making more income and as a result, you making more profit. And for this episode, I have on as a guest, Jeff Santone, who you've heard from before on the podcast. If you don't know Jeff, Jeff is our expansion executive here at MGE. He's lectured to thousands of dentists all over the United States and Canada. He's also owned 2 dental practices before he joined us here that were very successful. And the reason why I wanted to bring on Jeff this week is Jeff talks to at least a couple thousand dentists a year. And that's where we're getting our top 3 list from. You know, Jeff has a relevant, a now list of these reasons. And I thought it'd be good for him to illuminate us as to what are the major reasons that are happening right now, because they could be happening to you. My name is Jeff Bloomberg. I'm your host, and I'll bring Jeff Santone on here now. I think you're on, Jeff, and hooked up.
I am on. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Okay. So now when we were talking about this episode, this was a very easy thing to figure out because you're talking to, I don't know, what we said, at least 1,000 to 2,000 dentists a year.
Yeah.
And you've lectured to a ton. And obviously, I would assume that the reasons change over time slightly.
Yeah.
Maybe they stay the same too.
The underlying issue is always the same.
Got it. I got it. So if you were to talk to somebody and say you had to just pick, you didn't really know what their situation was.
Yeah.
What would be the number one thing you would look at as to why that office isn't making more income?
First thing, we look at is case acceptance sales.
Okay. So sales.
Yeah.
And what do you find when you're talking to somebody about this? Do most people think like sales is not a problem until you explain it to them?
Yeah. Most people believe that they're pretty good at case acceptance. Mm-hmm. They don't like the word sales, but they have an interesting definition of case acceptance. It's,
interesting.
Yeah. Everybody wants it. So they've accepted it.
Okay, so you talk to me, I need 8 crowns.
Yeah.
And I go, well, yeah, I think that sounds great. I want to do it, doctor. Yeah. Is that considered an accepted case?
Case acceptance.
But I haven't paid anything
That's
yet.
That's right. So, but we're very good at getting people to want it. They want it.
Allegedly.
Because
that's much nicer than me saying, yeah, I don't want this at all.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Well, everybody wants it till they hear how much it costs.
Exactly.
So what I tend to find actually when I look at numbers is that most guys have about a 28 to 35% case acceptance rate.
28 to 35% case acceptance rate. So explain. So in other words, is this out of total treatment diagnosed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll talk to guys that are savvy enough to pull their software and their data, and guys that have back end analytics that are connected, and there's a lot of programs that can do that. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. I talked to a rather large practice last year, and it was doing well, even by my standard. Did $5 million
a year. That's really good. But there's one office,
just maybe a few in his.
Okay, so I had a couple offices under his thing. Okay, fine.
But he was no dummy, and he knew his numbers. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, what'd you leave on the table last year?" 0 hesitation, $10 million of unaccepted treatment plan.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that might be more because of that $5 million, I'm assuming some's hygiene.
Yeah. And so, this guy knew what he was missing out on.
Okay.
And was completely aware of it. Unlike most of the people that we talk to, they don't, and the software systems are somewhat to blame, to be honest.
Okay.
They're not the best at producing those reports, and software is garbage in, garbage out. So we tend to find that even if I gave people the benefit of the doubt, and you know this from, lecturing here at MG for our communication sales seminars, that even if a guy was really good at case acceptance, like paid for in full,
Sure.
50% would be a fairly decent number.
So in other words, I'm a dentist. I've diagnosed 300,000 this month. 150 is
Yeah.
accepted. And just so
paid
everybody's
for,
clear,
yeah.
like our definition of accepted is the patient has agreed to do it and has paid.
Yeah.
They've made financial arrangements. They've paid. They've either prepaid or they've done some type of financing company or whatever their financial policy is. It's not just that they said they want it. Because again, what we used to run into, and still now I think, is someone needs those. I needed those 8 crowns.
Right.
And I go, well, how much will insurance pay? And they'll cover part of 2 this year.
Right.
So I accept those now and I'll do 2 next year or 2. Who knows where I'm going to even be next year?
Right.
I could have moved by then.
Right.
So, yeah.
So that's where I tend to look first, because even if a practice came on and they're like, we did 1.2 million last year, and I said, okay, let's just assume you have a 50% case acceptance. It'd be fairly high. You left at least 1.2 million on the table,
Right.
and this is like low hanging fruit, but completely unaware, and just not tracking that metric. So to me, that first point is always, how much did you diagnose? And how much did you produce? The quick, dirty method of case acceptance, I tell everybody, it's not the best, but it's a good starting point. Is pull total dollar value treatment plan presented for X time frame and total dollar production. The 2 numbers compared are your basic case acceptance rates.
Okay, so I'm looking at I diagnosed X amount in April, and I got X amount accepted in April.
Yeah,
because what's interesting about that too is I'll have people they have not always, but a generalized idea of the dollar value of treatment on their incomplete treatment list. Well, that could have been being accumulated over years. It's not. It doesn't tell you how you're doing now.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some of that software is part of the problem.
Got it. Yeah. And it's interesting you say this because I was just talking to a client. They just bought an office actually down here in Florida. They're in another state, and they have an associate in this office. They implemented some of the basic sales stuff, and the associate's not trained to sell.
Right.
Right. I think one of the managers in there is somewhat trained. Not trained to sell. This office was doing when they bought it 50, 60 a month. They're right now in the month of June at 140.
Wow.
Yeah. In the month, like we're midway through the month.
Yeah.
They're at 140. Just because, and it's not like the doctor's this really amazing salesperson. They're basically telling the doctor, tell patients what they need.
Yeah.
Because the office before was this insurance driven, do only what insurance covers type office. And I think they still have some PPOs in there even, but they've collected 140.
That's insane.
So yeah, it really is something that can make a humongous difference.
Yeah, a huge difference.
And let me ask you this too, because this was something I was talking to Saria about recently, and I did it, and I've done a number of episodes on treatment acceptance.
Yeah.
It's at least 6 that you guys can look up on the. I don't have the numbers in my head, which is why I'm being very general. But I did an episode a couple weeks ago because I'd heard from Saria and from Chris that they were running into newer clients, right, or prospective clients. I don't know if you see this, where they don't even tell the patient the full treatment plan.
Yeah, they hold off a bit sometimes.
But now, what reasoning are you running in? Because this is more common than I thought. I did not I thought it was not a thing anymore, and that's what I talked about in that episode. But, a patient needs scaling and root planing and 5 crowns and some fillings.
Yeah.
So they'll go tell them they need the scaling and root planing now because it's a new patient.
Yeah.
And they don't want to upset them. Right. Or it's a patient of record and they've just taken over the practice. They go, good, come do your scaling root planing. And then when you're here for that, we'll talk to you some more about it, about the other stuff. I didn't realize that was a thing, but apparently that's still a thing.
Yeah, it's give them a good experience type deal. Let them experience it really on this filling here, and then we'll talk about the other stuff. And I want them to see that we really care. And and I don't, for my doctors that have been practicing a while, I don't hear that too much.
Okay.
Especially the guys, that you're 20 years in, you know what you're doing. You have kind of gotten a little bit like, hey, come on, man, take it or leave it. This is it, right?
Right.
But some of my newer guys, I think it's the fear of coming off of that recommending unnecessary care.
Well, I mean, is it unnecessary or not? I guess if it's not unnecessary, then and it's they're the doctor, they're the one who's supposed to decide.
No, we hear that all the time. Is what makes it unnecessary is telling them what they need and giving them what they want. The minute I only want part of what you said I needed, the rest becomes unnecessary.
But the joke is why is that usually? It's because you told me I need 8 crowns.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to pay $9,000. Who does?
Who does? No one.
Like I'm aching to pay this money.
Well,
right?
and nobody ever walked in. the number one reason that we run into the sales problem you talk to guys is there's a disconnect on expectation.
Okay.
I'm a patient. I walk in. What do I expect to do today? I expect my free cleaning. And now you're going to tell me to make a $2,000 decision in under 7 minutes.
Right.
For something that doesn't hurt me. I didn't know I needed it until just 7 minutes ago. And I don't have $2,000 readily available for this. And we wonder why 70% of the practice might walk out the door thinking about it. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's to me, it's just like it's a time issue.
Right. Well, then that's where they need the skills
Yeah.
to go, okay, here's this patient, knowing what their expectations
Yeah.
are. If their expectation is everything is great, then you have to kind of, we talked about this a few episodes ago, kind of foreshadowing maybe
Yeah.
that they might have a problem. Because that's where you see these reviews. You know, I went to this doctor and they told me I needed this and that and that and this. And then I went back to my old dentist who said I didn't need it. And
I went back to old Dr. Smith,
Yeah.
75 years old, on coast, you know.
I don't know.
Been watching everything for 30 years,
Right.
you know.
Like, I don't know what yeah, maybe that happens. I don't know.
I
it could
don't.
also be a troll.
Yeah, it
I
could
don't
be.
know.
I don't know.
But what, not to reiterate the whole thing, but it should be diagnosis, explain the
Yeah.
diagnosis, make sure if you're going to give a patient a diagnosis, you have time to actually close the case.
Yeah.
Because you can't do it in 5 minutes.
Can't do it.
And again, I'm not going to rehash prior episodes,
right.
right? But you do that.
Yeah.
And when you're done with that,
Yeah.
you tell them the fee.
Yeah, tell them the fee.
Yeah, you tell them the fee, and you have your treatment coordinator there,
Yep.
and most people, if you tell them the fee, it's $10,000.
Yeah.
They're going to go, "Wow, that's a lot of money." I totally understand. How would you normally take care of something like this? Well, can I put it on a credit card? Like, now you're getting somewhere.
Yeah, you're getting
Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah.
But most people don't do that.
No, and at the first sign, what I tend to notice at most of the meetings, these are not clients or soon to be clients,
Sure.
but the tendency when they give them that price, or even just at the mention of a treatment plan, you can get a reaction from a patient,
Of course.
a negative reaction.
Of course.
And one of the main things we teach here at MGE that is hard sometimes to do is listening to someone with the intention of actually getting what they're saying.
Right.
Right? Like, what is this guy actually saying? Instead of what we tend to find is most people want to listen to someone else and go, well, why are what you saying is wrong? Like, let me tell you why that thought might lead to something poor.
Right.
And so they go, okay, so you don't want to do this. Let me tell you all the negative things that could happen. And it doesn't really address the patient's original consideration, which
Right.
is it's a lot of money.
Sure.
Yeah, if you were to just say, well, yeah, it is a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. And again, I thought Saru was great, what she brought up. If someone's, and this is something we brought up, and this is something from just sales, is if it becomes all about the money.
Yeah.
Which is what I think most of these prospective clients are petrified of. They don't want to end up going back and forth talking about money in an operatory with a
Right.
patient and having them get steamed.
Yeah.
Like, that is just like the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
That's like going to school and finding out you went to school with your underwear on,
Yeah, yeah,
no
yeah,
pants,
yeah,
right? Oh my gosh. But if it's getting like that,
Yeah.
then it's not the money.
Yeah.
That's the other thing to think with. So, okay, you need 8 crowns. It's $10,000. Your insurance is going to pay $1,500. Your balance is $8,500, and now you're talking about money for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, then you should just stop.
Yeah.
And say, okay, listen, let me ask you a question. Do you want this treatment plan? Well, I don't know, because of course I'm going to argue about money if I don't want what you're trying to sell me. Why would I? I don't want to pay you anything then.
Yeah. When people want something, what I found is they'll move heaven and earth to get it.
Of course.
Money is no issue.
Right. They'll figure it out.
Yeah,
They'll figure it out. So, and of course, there are cases where a person just cannot pay.
Yeah.
But I think the percentage is a lot smaller than people think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. And when we go over this concept in a lot of the free seminars that we have, that a doctor should talk a little bit of money, mention, it's interesting. The number one reason that they come up with why they can't do that right now.
Sure.
And it's always a time constraint. I don't have enough time
course.
to do it. Right.
Yeah.
And I always have a good laugh. I'm a little bit more combative sometimes in the free seminars, if you could imagine that.
No.
And I'll be like, all right, well, do you have time to go out of business? Like, I don't understand, like you haven't paid yourself in a year.
Right.
Right. Like you should this is important. Right.
Yeah. Just block time in the schedule.
just-
We've, again, if you've listened to prior episodes, we have that in there, but it's like if you don't have time, it's a cardinal rule we teach all of our clients. If you don't have time to close the case, don't start selling the case.
Don't do it.
Schedule them to come back if you have to, which isn't ideal, but
Yeah. It's not ideal, but it's better than wasting it right there and then. Right. And then at the end of it, the not tracking of it is probably the biggest missed opportunity.
So you say, like when you say tracking, what do you mean?
Yeah. So like it would be in the doctor's best interest at the end of the day, separately from the practice management software system, because they can't be trusted, to have an Excel sheet of all the people I presented a treatment plan to and how much it was. Like, what was the total? And at a later date, once a month we should come back, update it, go, did we actually produce it? How much of this did we produce?
So I can track my, my case, my treatment percentage, acceptance percentage.
Yeah. I did this with a doctor once. A guy came to a free seminar. And he was I really liked him. He was very cocky. And I quite liked that about him. And he's like, no, I'm great at sales. Every patient takes it. And I was like, okay. I was like, you up for a challenge? He's like, yeah, whatever you got. I go, okay, good. I'm going to give you this Excel sheet. Fill it out.
Sure.
In 1 month, we're going to meet again and we're going to go over it. Right. So he meets and he filled it out. He was very good. And now this was a comprehensive, plus he could do specialty work.
Okay.
So this had a potential to be a lot.
Like high ticket items.
Yeah, he could do implants, restorations, bone grafts, all that stuff.
Well, okay.
And so I got he sent me the list, and I get on the meeting with him. I was like, did you total this? He goes, no, I didn't want to. So
hey, at least he admitted it.
He admitted
right?
it. So I go, you presented $224,000 worth of dentistry.
That's great.
He said, yeah, that's really good. I go, but you only actually produced, it was almost 70,000 of it. So from an overall numbers point of view, from a guy who just started out to do 70 of just his work, then add in the hygiene.
He's probably doing 100 a month.
Doing well.
Yeah.
I'm doing great. How do I get more profitability? I was like, well, you left $140,000, $150,000 on the table,
Well, because I think what goes missing too is there's this idea, okay, time.
Yeah.
So you're going to present those 8 crowns.
Yeah.
It takes just about as much time to properly present and get me to accept 2 as it gets me to accept 8.
Yeah.
It really isn't a big deal as far as difference of time.
No.
So, yeah, like this idea is going to take all this time to increase your treatment.
Yeah.
That's again a falsehood.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't matter anyway, because the time they think they have is an illusion, and the time they think they don't have is an illusion. All they book their schedule with will be cancellations and no-shows. They just don't know it.
Or single units when they could be doing quadrant dentistry. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, good point.
So to me, when guys come in and they're like, I'm not making enough, number one thing is always, okay, are you tracking this metric well?
Right.
What are you doing about it? How do you follow up? Where are you? And so I always tell every doctor, like, look, you bought the practice. You're now a business owner more than you are a dentist.
Right.
And if you can't quote to me the last month, last 6 months, last year of case acceptance to the second decimal point of a percentage, then you don't know what you're doing on case acceptance.
Right.
And it exists, the number, whether you want to calculate it or not. So
Right.
you're better off to calculate it,
Yeah.
figure it out. There's nothing wrong with it. And that's where we start for everything.
So that's problem number 1.
Problem number one.
And I guess, I'm thinking about this as you're talking, and this is something from a marketing perspective, because, how do you market to an audience where, what percentage of the newer clients that you talk to or prospective clients that you talk to think they can sell that you find numerically actually can't? If you had to, I know that you don't have a study on this, but you had to estimate. So you talk to 100 doctors.
Yeah.
What percentage, number one, think they're pretty good at sales?
From my definition of sales, talking
No. From their definition.
From case acceptance.
Their perception.
I would say 80% of them mark themselves as how do you do on case presentation, case acceptance, 80% or higher.
Okay. So then you talk to 100 doctors. 80 of them are going to say, I don't have a sales problem.
I'm pretty good at it.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So then out of those 100 doctors again, how many actually have a sales problem? Again, I know I'm putting you on the spot here to ask you to estimate.
I have not come across a doctor in the past I really was here full time since, I would say, it's awful to say this. Mm-hmm. Like, can I say 99.999%? Like,
so the majority, if not all, have a sales problem. They don't realize it.
Right.
Yet 80% of them think they don't.
Right.
So 20% do.
Yeah.
They have a sales problem and they know they do.
Yeah.
Whereas 80%, the majority of that 80% have a sales problem and don't think they do. They think it's some other reason. It's new patients. It's this. It's that. It's patients' low dental IQ or this or that or whatever. That's why marketing this is, from our perspective, it has always been slightly mildly maddening to me because how do you tell somebody they have a problem when they're convinced that they don't? You run into an instant. It's like it's what they run into with patients.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, here's this patient. Their last dentist told them they're a great patient. Now you're going to drop on them. They got $10,000 worth of work. They're going to freak out. Yeah. They don't want to hear you.
They don't want to hear.
They know you're lying.
Listen,
what's your angle?
Jeff, I can't buy your money back guaranteed course. Mm-hmm. I'm a brand new practice and I'm only getting a patient a month. And what I need to buy is this brand new piece of equipment.
Right.
It's $200,000. Mm-hmm. I'm like, but you don't have any new patients. I know, but this will get me.
Right. The intentions are good.
Yeah.
But so I guess, listen, folks, if you're listening to this and you're not an MGE client, and I'm not trying to, this isn't hubris. I'm not trying to be a jerk. There's a really good chance, as Jeff Santone here says, a 99.9% chance you actually have a sales problem.
Yeah.
It's the number one reason he's selected that you, and that I would validate that you are not making the money or profit that you want to make. Mm-hmm. And here's the worst part of it that I don't think people look at, because again, we're just looking at it from the business perspective. Let's take this from the patient's perspective for a second. So if I go to a doctor and I need a certain amount of treatment to improve my health, and the doctor does not communicate it in such a way that I accept it, well, you could go, well, that's on me. Mm-hmm. That's true. There is some truth in that.
Sure.
But if the doctor were better at it, I would. So your patient's health is suffering.
Right.
So just think with that. So number one, sales.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Now, last point, shameless plug. If you want help with this, you should check out the MGE Communication and Sales Seminars. I'll put a link on the episode webpage. And you could probably end up talking to Jeff Santone here about them. Yeah?
Yeah, it'd be great. I can help you out.
One of his people.
Yeah.
Okay,
good. Awesome.
All right, good. So that's reason number one. What's reason number two?
So the number two reason that I find is that fees are too low.
Okay, so by fees too low, like the doctor isn't charging enough for what they're doing?
Yeah.
And is that just because their fee schedule is too low?
Yeah, you got two reasons. One, their fee schedule is too low. Mm-hmm. And then two, they participate with a multitude of insurances and they're automatically discounted down to something lower. Okay.
And that just so there's this is something interesting to unpack here.
Yeah.
All right. So let's first talk about, if we could, the fees. Because I could give you I don't know what if you want to call it, a story, an anecdote right this second.
Sure.
In that, so I just bought the Wasserman Guide developers version, which, by the way, I know I recommend the Wasserman Guide. I hadn't bought it in a while. Buy the developers version. It's $600, but you can't export your fee schedule otherwise, which is kind of whatever. Yeah, like if you want to export it as a spreadsheet where you can then, do something with it. Otherwise, you could sit there and enter every little fee.
Yeah.
But it's also useful because there are fees that or codes, CDT codes that are no longer valid, or they make a new CDT code for something else. They stay on top. It's a great product.
Yeah.
But you got to know what you're buying.
Yeah.
That was the only complaint I would have about it. So when you buy it, buy the developer's version, more expensive, but it's more functional.
Yeah.
Again, I get nothing for this, but whatever. I don't want anything.
Yeah.
It's useful. So I just bought that. Because we do our fees and plans analysis with prospective clients and clients actually.
Yeah.
And I analyzed this new practice this one client bought, as well as their other practice that they currently have. So the new practice was not even on the charts, because they go 40th, 50th, 60th percentile, 50th being, half the people in town charge more than you or the same or less. Right? Oh, that doesn't make any sense. Let me say that again. Half the people in town charge more than you. And half the people in town charge the same as you do or less.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So the 40th is the lowest they go from what I recall.
Yeah.
Most of the fees for this practice that this doctor bought here in Florida were not even in the 40th percentile.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Not even close.
Yeah, not
Right. And then not even PPO fees. I'm talking their regular fee schedule.
yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
But then I checked their practice, and again, their fees were not great. They were, because we always have recommended over the years be in the 60th or 70th percentile.
Yeah.
They weren't even there in a very successful office.
Wow.
Right. So I think that people have really, and I don't know, unfortunately, for Canada or for, we have listeners in Canada a lot, and we have some in the EU and other places as well. I don't really have a thing for that. I know Canada, if I'm not mistaken, and for Canadian clients and dentists, something I should probably look into more in depth. But I remember there was some type of thing issued by the Royal College where they had sort of suggested fees. You don't have to be at that fee.
That's right.
But it's something they can look into. They can contact their local society and ask more. But I think a lot of people just miss the mark.
Yeah.
They have no idea what they should be charging. They set their fees 12 years ago and they've been quote unquote tracking inflation.
Yeah.
Trust me on this one, folks. You're not even close
Yeah.
on this. And this is why we do, like I've noticed you guys have been doing, here I'm interviewing you and I'm talking the most here, but sorry.
It's okay.
But it's just something I have something to say
It's
about.
all right. Yeah.
But
You have you got it. You just have recent numbers, real data.
This fees and plans analysis, I've noticed that's been blowing up for you guys.
Yeah.
Where you analyze their current fees.
Yeah.
As well as how to get out of PPOs.
That's right.
Right. So, now you have the Wasserman software.
Yeah,
as
I've got
well.
the Wasserman software, and I can look up anybody's zip code. And
What are you finding with fees?
to be right up until this year, most of the people that I would run into were well below the 40th percentile, and and it's not surprising, to be honest. It's if you understand the way the dental practice works, and you do, then you get this idea, like, and I understand their idea. It's like, why am I going to raise fees? 80% of my practice is in network.
Right.
What am I? So then I'm going to raise the fee to the $1,425 you're suggesting for this crown.
Sure.
So here comes the executive from Exxon who walks in, he flashes his Delta card, and he gets the crown for $795.
Sure.
So now here comes a single parent of 3 having a really tough time, and I'm going to charge him $1,425.
Yeah.
It's
going the way of health. It's going the way of hospitals.
Yeah. Like, why is this person subsidizing my Exxon guy?
Right.
Like, that's not fair, right? And so, and I get that. The moral dilemma of raising
Sure.
fees. Totally understand that, and I understand that. But they're playing the insurance game, and they must play the game.
Now, this is an interesting point you brought up because tell these folks how this messes up fees.
Yeah. So, well, I always query people. I ask them. I was like, do you know that these percentiles that I'm giving you, where do you think these companies get this information?
So the
from?
Deltas, the Aetnas,
That's
the
right.
Cignas.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago when we were doing this, like, one of the companies was gone for a little bit. I think there was a lawsuit. There was like some fight of the insurances who want to give out their numbers anymore. Like, didn't want to give out this data, right? But this is where the data comes from, because when you submit a claim, every insurance company makes you submit your private practice fee schedule. You don't put on the contracted rate.
Right.
So if you don't play the game, then the insurance company can turn around and go, why are we going to raise your fees?
Because fees aren't going up.
You haven't raised your fees. You're below the 40%. I remember the first time I did this when we became MG clients, we were well below, the mark.
Right.
And I raised my fees to the 70th percentile. And we went from like a surgical extraction, which was like $200 to $330.
Wow.
We were, that's how far off we were. And Delta's like, did you just raise fees? Like, because you've been submitting this for the past 5 years. Why are we going to do this? Not that they would ever raise fees anyway. But on top of that, then they use the data to justify handing out their fee schedule.
Right. So I have a bunch of doctors in this zip code charging under the 40th percentile.
Yeah.
I'm using the aggregate of all that data to set my fee and the discount I'm going to give on the fee. So that becomes the full fee.
Yeah.
So if that full fee were in the 70th percentile and we're, in the case for surgical extraction, $300 everybody was charging in an oral surgeon's office versus $200, I'd have to raise my fee at some point, most likely. Otherwise, I would price myself out of the market.
Yeah. That was the always joke, because when you talk to them, they'd be like, we're in a competitive range, right? And I used to laugh. I tell people, it's surprising. I talk to a lot of guys. I go, which one's your worst insurance? And believe it or not, a lot of guys say MetLife. And I was like, oh, MetLife. And I was like, I actually quite liked MetLife, but I was out of network.
Okay.
Right. So then what you tend to find is I was like, well, what are you getting for a cleaning exam, comp exam, x-rays, new patient, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they'd get like maybe $180. I go, you go out of network, MetLife's going to pay 100% up to $435.
Really?
They know, so that's the joke of it. They know what you're worth.
Right.
Because they get the full fees of everybody.
But here's something else on MetLife. And
Yeah.
again, I have to, I have no personal, I know if we talk to you about Delta, we could make a 1-hour episode about your feelings about Delta, especially
Yes, we
Delta of
could.
California.
Delta Dental of California.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
5.1 billion
Don't,
in
if you ever
revenue.
want to
Don't
have
get me
fun, call Jeff and ask him what he thinks of Delta Dental of California. Okay. So, but specifically with MetLife, so they have a website, and again, I don't have my computer in front of me. It's called feelookup.com.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is the MetLife site.
Wow.
Okay. Either that or it's somebody using MetLife's logo, which I'm sure they would not be happy about.
No, they wouldn't take it.
I'm assuming this is MetLife's site.
Yeah.
It's also kind of a cutesy website address or URL, right? Okay. So you can enter your zip, enter a code, and it will give you the MetLife fee for the code. Because I've used this in a couple episodes.
Yeah.
Where I'll go, this is the MetLife fee for a hygiene appointment. This is MetLife fee for fee for service in that area. Here's another interesting thing. So I look at what they were charging as the full fee in an area by a zip code. So you take a zip code. I took my home zip code.
Yeah.
So I won't give it out on here, but it's 33 something. Okay. It's Florida. So I saw the MetLife fee. And I first looked up, standard pro fee. Pro fee, exam, periodic exam, and 4x wings.
Yeah.
And then I looked at, okay, what do they estimate as the full fee? And they give you a range.
Yeah.
It'll be like the pro fee is, 107 to 113.
Yeah.
Okay. So I averaged down the middle. And their fees were in the 40th percentile, the ones they were giving on their website when I checked it against the Wasserman guide.
Yeah.
So they would say a pro fee is $99 at full fee in this area when really it's 110.
Yeah.
So that was interesting
Yeah.
too, just as an aside.
Yeah. These guys know what they're doing. They're smart. They can manipulate those numbers quite easily, and they can do whatever they want.
That's true.
It's their contract, and you agree to it. And so I tend to find that this idea of not raising fees because the moral dilemma that people have is unfounded. Like, believe it or not, the thing I hear the most when people go, well, if I raise the fee, and I go, well, for the mom or the parent of 3 that walks in with single, like, we'll just discount it. Oh, I can't do that. I'm not allowed to do that. I was like, you signed a contract that allowed you to discount fees. Like, why can't you discount your own private practice fee?
I mean, I guess they could.
They could.
Again, this is always a question they can ask their lawyer or whatever. But if it's not a usual thing, I would imagine it's not terrible.
I don't understand. Yeah, I mean, like, you would do it on one-off basis.
Sure.
Like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to decide to give you a discount. Right. There's this, and people are misinformed sometimes on their contracts, I think, with their dental insurances. They think every chart can get audited. I was like, no, it's only your Delta patients that can get audited.
Well, in the state of California, if you know, they have a department of like managed care or something like this.
Yeah.
Because there's audits now if you accept managed care.
Wow.
Yeah. But it's state driven. It's not necessarily insurance driven because the California Dental Association was suing. They've sued Delta once. They're suing them again.
Wow.
Because of the whole fee shenanigans.
Yeah.
And now, again, if you want to look up the case, you can on the CDA website. But there was some other issue with inspections now too, or like not just a random audit. It's supposed to be like a regular. Again, I'm just throwing this out here. This isn't something I'm studying in depth because really, sort of the direction we're pushing our clients now is get out.
Get out.
Because there's really, you don't lose as many patients as you think. We've done episodes on this. I mean, here's what I'd recommend. Obviously, we could say buy the Wasserman guide, which again, remember the developer version. Get out of PPOs or whatever. What I'd really recommend is they talk to you.
Sure.
And do a fees and plans analysis.
Yeah.
Because this is now another thing.
Yeah.
We've been pushing this for years.
Yeah.
And everybody's jumping on the boat.
They're all. I just did a fees and plans analysis.
Okay.
With a doctor, and man, she was actually awesome.
Yeah.
She had all her data.
Okay.
Right. So we plug and play some numbers, and our calculator came out. We were off by like $49 on because she gave me total produced.
Yeah.
She had then total collected.
Okay.
And we have our calculator.
Yeah.
And we're making assumptions with the calculator, right? But I didn't want
it's an algorithm
it's
based
an algorithm,
on
right?
a blend of services and stuff like
we've
that.
talked to enough people we know. And so I think it was like, let's just use numbers, like she had collected 50 and per production it was at 100. Our calculator came out at like 99,800. So we were off by like $200.
Oh,
right?
wow. Okay.
And so it's interesting that you tend to find
That's an awesome calculator.
it's an awesome calculator.
I
yeah.
made the calculator.
You made the
that's why.
calculator. Yeah. And then I hand it out with an instruction guide. Do this. Right?
We should talk about how awesome that calculator
It
is
an
more.
amazing
No, I'm
calculator. It's
kidding.
quite easy.
Never mind.
But,
I'm sorry.
sorry. But what I find is doctors aren't dumb. They're actually
Well, they have doctorates. They're not. Of course, they're not dumb.
smart.
Yeah, of course.
They're very smart. And none of them have ever come to a fees and plans analysis not knowing that they're getting ripped off.
Of
They
course.
know they're getting ripped off.
I think
right?
some guys just don't want to know.
They don't want to know. And so when I'm talking to this doctor,
It's like if I don't Schrodinger's.
if I don't lift the
it's
box up.
Schrodinger's fee schedule.
Yeah.
If I don't lift the box up, I don't know how much I'm getting ripped
That's right.
off. Yeah.
But this doctor, she was awesome. She's going through. She's telling me everything. Blah blah blah. So then I finally look at her. I go, so then why aren't you dropping insurances?
Uh-huh.
Well, I don't want to lose these patients.
Of course. Which I understand.
And
that.
I get that, right?
Yeah.
So like the interesting part is the unknown piece.
Mm-hmm.
So they can calculate the numbers, they can calculate these things, but then what we calculate is go, well, you're not going to lose all of them.
Sure.
You
Well, the
know.
average is no more than 30%.
No more than 30%.
Delta is a special case, but
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
there's ways around that.
there's
too.
ways
Yeah.
around that. Her write-off on average. So I always tell everybody, look, the quick dirty method,
Mm-hmm.
I have a quick dirty method to everything, by the way, to an acceptable loss rate of an insurance, should you decide to write a letter, is, well, what's your discount rate?
Sure.
If your discount rate is 50%, you could lose 50% of that insurance.
Sure.
And you'd still make the same amount. You'd be way more profitable. I don't even need to get into that.
Because you have less material costs, labor.
All that, right? Good. So what was unknown was there was this fear of 50 patients that I could lose. And I go, look, let's run some scenarios. Fee-for-service model. If you lost 50 patients, you needed 27 to replace all of them fee-for-service, and you'd be back to even. But unlikely you're going to lose all of them. If she lost 30%, she still had more to lose because her discount rate was over 40%.
Right. That's the thing I think people don't think with.
Yeah.
So I have 1,000 patients in this plan. If you lose 300 of them, and
Right.
with a lot of these plans,
Yeah.
that's a lot of patients to lose.
Yeah.
You lose 300 of them, which is usually where it maxes out,
Yeah.
right? When we do that calculator, because it'll say how many new patients you would need if you lost 30%, 20%, 50%. Usually if you lose 30%, you could lose more and still make the same revenue, which
right.
is like, that's a joke.
And you're working 30% less.
Right. So 30% less on lab, 30% less on supplies, 30% less on labor.
Yep.
Or you get other patients in there who are fee for service because obviously it should be coupled with a new patient
That's right.
campaign.
That's right.
But yeah. So, wow. Okay. So my recommendation there then.
Yeah.
And didn't you talk to somebody? I was mentioning this a little bit ago about where now it kind of seems like everybody's jumping in this space now.
Yeah. I talked to
Yeah. Did you talk to somebody who was going to pay? Like, what were they being told they needed to pay to analyze their fees?
analyze and get them out of insurance was $90,000. And
Okay, so if you want to give us
Yeah.
$90,000,
will
we'll help
do.
you get out of insurance.
I talked to the doctor.
Like what?
He was
What?
Like, he was like,
What was he getting for $90,000?
he didn't know. That's why he was talking
that's
to us,
great.
and he's quite antagonistic. So I really like him. He's very he's very blunt with what he says, right?
Sure.
So I was like $90,000. I was like, all you're writing is a letter, though, right? He's like, that's what I thought. I don't know. They gave us some graphs, some fancy things, and
Are they going to do a shuttle service
That's
for the
what he's
patients
like,
or
well, they're-
something for the
yeah,
90 grand?
I was like, look, I don't know if it's worth 90. I don't think it is. Blah blah
Sure.
blah. Right. So then you get a hard time. I was like, look, you could come on. I could do something for you. He's like, but you just said it wasn't worth $90,000. And I was like, well, if you're going to throw it out, I might as well take it.
Yeah, give me
like,
$90,000
this is fine. And he laughed.
Not a
good time.
dummy,
But people take advantage of, I think, the business lack of knowledge for
Sure.
a lot of people. And, and I think it was prorated on the size of their practice. I don't think it was like
So it wasn't based like a flat fee.
I don't think it to me, it wouldn't make sense because do you have a mom and pop shop that shows up? They were doing quite large numbers.
What kind of numbers were they doing?
It was north of 3 million.
So what were they writing off per year?
1.2.
Okay, so then that would seem like a decent investment.
Yeah.
If I could pay $90,000 and recover some of that,
Some of it.
well, at least 100 or 200 of that 1.2, that would make sense.
Yeah, and it was, I get that, and I don't blame that company for doing what they're doing because
No. I mean,
I think
we don't
doing-
ever really knock our competition.
No,
It was a bit shocking when you're like, I remember you telling me this. This guy wants $90,000.
I was
What?
like, wow, I was like,
That's pretty cool.
and that doctor, he's a funny, he's a very blunt guy. Like I said, I was like, look, I'm going to tell you what to do. Read your contract, write a letter, get more new patients. Fin,
Yeah, I mean,
done.
there's more to it
There's
than
more
that,
to that,
right?
right?
I mean, here's what I'd recommend,
Yeah.
right? So we've got this point. They should just talk to you.
Yeah.
Do the fees and plans analysis. I'll put a link on the episode webpage, right? Because these are booking up. They're free. They're
free, yeah,
There is
yeah.
zero obligation, folks, if you want to do this. Now, am I going to tell you if you go, good, now I want to completely get out of managed care and have a fee-for-service practice? Yeah, you're probably going to need to buy something. You need to learn how to sell and you need to learn how to market, but it's not very cost prohibitive.
No. I mean, not if you're going to recapture 1.2 million.
No.
Even if you're going to recapture 600,000. Not to mention, by doing that stuff, you're also going to capture the other 60% that you're not getting case acceptance of.
Right.
So it's all part and parcel of the problem.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's reason number two. Reason number one is sales. Reason
Yes.
number two is fees, whether it's PPOs or
Yes.
fees are too low. What is reason number three?
Reason number three. So reason number three is they're not being an executive of their practice.
Okay, so how would that manifest?
Well, it manifests, I think, in a lot of ways where you have a business and you hire people and you just assume they're going to get it done.
And they're not necessarily getting it.
And they're not
There's a
necessarily
disconnect between,
Yeah.
because I know as an executive, my job, if I have someone who's supposed to do something,
Yeah.
my job, I'm accountable to make sure they actually do it.
Right.
So you're saying, in other words, is I've got this person who's supposed to whatever do our finances or
Yeah.
this or that, and I don't know whether they're doing it or not, but I hired them to do it, so I'm assuming they do it.
That's right. Yeah.
And sometimes I get lucky and they do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
I'm very unlucky.
They're very,
Got it.
very unlucky, And
That's
so,
not how I operate, by the way.
No, that's not how
Okay.
you operate.
Yes.
But that, to me, is probably one of the larger problems of the shift from associate to owner.
Okay.
Is that, as an associate, even if it was for a year, other people, they saw how the practice was operating. And if you were in a practice that didn't operate, so you're going to copy that model. You don't want to rock the boat. You're just going to go in and I just want to be a dentist. That's all I want to do. I want to be a dentist. I want to have people that work for me. And I want to get them to get the work done. They've been doing it. But then they can't correct any of it. They can't quality control any of it. And so it is, it's kind of like, it's like me trying to hire a dentist. I don't know anything about dentistry.
Right. You can't see if they're doing a good job.
I don't
They're
know.
leaving open margins.
Yeah,
or
right.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this guy and he goes, "Man, that's fantastic work." And the dentist walks in, he goes, "Oh, Jesus, what
That's
is
a terrible
That's
prep.
a terrible. Oh my goodness! How do
Right.
you let that leave? It looked fine to me. I don't know. Like it's funny. I give these guys a hard time sometimes. Not sometimes, all the time. They're like, "Well, I've just invested $600,000 in my dental education, and then I bought a practice for $1 million." And I go, "Okay, good. How much business training have you taken?" Like next to none. And I go, okay, so there's your bit of a disconnect, right?
Sure.
Like dentistry is easy for these guys.
Of course, they went to school for it.
That's no problem.
Right.
But getting the phone to ring, having someone answer it in a professional manner to get people in, and then have that person actually show up, then have the patient sit in front of you so you could present the $5,000 treatment plan. That's the hard part of the dental business.
Well, and then getting the staff to support you in that business
All
and
of it,
having
yeah.
them not,
You get the patient in the chair with an open mouth, ready to do what you tell them to do, easy dentistry.
Yeah.
Everything after that appointment, also difficult. And so if you're not minding any of this from an executive point of view, or you don't even know about it, really honestly, you don't know about it because you don't want to know sometimes and you don't have time to know and you're just looking at these other numbers. What we tend to find is that you turn to the thing you do know, and the thing you know is dentistry.
Right.
So numbers aren't up. I'm tired of sending out my implants. I'm going to do an implant course. Numbers aren't up. I'm tired of sending out ortho. So I'm going to do courses. I'm going to do ortho. I'm going to do endo. I'm going to try to gather more of a clinical skill set to accomplish higher production.
Which is, there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that, but
if you can't sell it,
then what's the point?
yeah.
And I tell everybody, like, and they know this well, like, these are very perishable skill sets, especially something that you're not very confident in yet. You know, you learn how to place implants. You're only going to do 3 this year, 10 this year. You can't sell bread and butter dentistry. Like, it's very unlikely that you're going to be comfortable enough to do enough implants to make use of that skill set.
Well, especially how expensive an implant is.
That's
you can't sell a crown. You're going to have trouble selling an implant.
That's what I tell people, you know. And so that executive hat of digging into the areas of the practice that truly need your attention, I get that you don't want to do it. Like, I understand that. And like, nobody, you know, owns a dental practice thinking I'm going to spend hours upon, and the guys that do spend hours, we do talk to a lot of doctors. You know, I ask them that question, you know, how many days a week do you work? 4, Monday through Thursday. I go, good. How many other days do you work on the practice? Oh, 2.
I see. So they're 4 days clinical, 2 days
admin, catching up, notes, this, and doing the ordering.
Our clients normally are able to reduce their hours because they have a system.
You have a system that works. You put people in charge of it. You only check what you need to check, you know, and that to me is really problem number 3. You know, they all become a little bit then intertwined. Like, you know, is it the chicken or the egg? You know, is problem number 3 causing the sales issue? You know, or is the sales issue not giving me the time to be the executive that I need to be? You know, am I running on roller skates now because I'm into these fees and insurances? And really all the training that we have here at MG is designed to make you the business owner you intended to be. You're more a business owner now than you are a dentist. There's a lot of day-to-day operations that require a business mindset and not the dental skill set.
Right.
And so when we turn that over to people to do it for us, when we ourselves don't know how to do it, then what we've effectively done is we've become the employee.
Right.
And we just don't know it. And that's where, you know, the guys that come to the meetings, to the seminars, that sign up for courses, they are ready. They know that, look, yeah, you're right. Like, I've tried this other stuff. I've been to implant courses. I've done the ortho courses, and my numbers really haven't moved. They've gone up a little bit, but you know, I'm ready to do more on the marketing front. I'm ready to do more on the sales front. And the whole intention is to learn it so you don't have to do it.
Right.
And that's that skill set that you want. How do you get out of your practice? How do you leave the practice? How do you make this enjoyable? There's only 2 ways out of the practice, in my opinion. I think you either die in the chair next to your patient because you can't get out of clinical, or you learn to run the business and move yourself into a CEO position where people can do the work. We can get other people to diagnose. You can manage it from afar. You can look down from the man in the bubble, and you can, every once in a while, you got to jump in on the line. I get that.
Right.
But you got to know how to jump in on the line.
Right. No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
That's number 3. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow because nobody wants to go back to school.
Well, but you know, the bottom line is this.
Yeah.
So someone has spent all this time and effort on their education, their office, the debts, this, that, the other. It's like, if you're going to go through all that work to attain a profession, you want to at least enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's all I'd have to say about it. Like, there's a right and a wrong way, and there's an infinity of ways they could do it wrong, you know?
Yeah.
So, no, this is good. This is good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so folks, I hope that helps. Jeff, thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having
I
me.
don't know if there's anything we want to add.
No, give me a call. You got questions? You don't know what's going on?
When I have that fees and plans analysis link on the episode webpage, they should definitely check that out.
Yeah, do it. Like, we love doing those. Those are a lot of fun. They're eye-opening for all of us. Even I learned things.
Yeah.
So
not good things though, usually.
You know, not good, but I've seen some better trends. I've seen some guys raising their fees. I'm really happy about that.
Good.
You know, so those are good things. Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, that's all we have for you this week. If you have any questions about MGE, you can find us online at mgeonline.com. Call us at 800-640-1140. Don't forget, the links again are on the episode webpage. We will see you at next week's episode. Have a great week.